Good morning and welcome. We send greetings to our Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota and our Lakewood Ranch Unitarian Universalists and our visitors. I'm the Reverend Doug Watkins. I'm the interim senior minister. I will be presenting the sermon this morning. I'm joined in the worship service by the Reverend Beth Miller, associate minister, Catherine Bonner, who will offer our time for all ages, piano by Don Brin, and our special guest musician, Thomas Koch. I'll say more about him in a moment. And our hymns today will be led by Jan Dorsett and Paul Lewis. And of course, our continued deep gratitude for Klaus and Doug and their incredible work as our technical folk. If you are a visitor, we hope that you will take a moment before you leave the website today to click on the homepage on the Welcome Visitors banner. If you do that, you can find out a lot more about this congregation and what we're doing. We hope that while you're there, you will sign our virtual guest book. That way we will send you our weekly newsletter, The Contact, as well as links to the various Zoom meetings that we have throughout the week. I hope you'll take the chance to get to know us today. Also, right after the service, we will have a virtual coffee hour on Zoom. We hope that you will join us on that. It is the same link that you use for the morning forum. So I hope to see you there. Also, we wanted to let you know that on our homepage, there is some information about single member districts, which impacts the accessibility and accountability of our county commissioners. A member of our congregation, Barbara Logan, also has t-shirts available for sale to both raise awareness and visibility of this important issue. You can contact Barbara Logan by using the information in our Breeze directory or just reach out to the office. In just a moment, we will have our prelude. I hope after that, when we light our chalice, that you will light your own candle or chalice at home. But we're happy as part of our prelude to have Thomas Koch, who is a German classical guitarist trained and educated in Germany and France, and has made Sarasota his home since 1996. He teaches and performs mostly in Florida as a soloist with many regional orchestras and was a founding member of the trio Voila. He commissions new works for solo guitar and chamber music for flute, viola, and guitar, as well as maintaining a private guitar studio in Sarasota and being on the music faculty of Booker High School, one of the leading performing arts high schools in the state. Thomas, welcome, and we look forward to you sharing our music this morning in our prelude.
Good morning, everyone. For our chalice lighting words this morning, hear these words, Gathering in Our Own Space by Jeff May. A person wearing glasses with curly hair tied back sits in front of two computers with colorful images on their screens. Come, gather. Not into a common space, sharing a physical oneness we long for, precluded by wise choice. But come, gather into this common time and this common space. And with the lighting of the chalice, we acknowledge that we need to be together. We yearn for connection. We hunger for the familiar faces of friends, the sound of shared voices proclaiming who we are, where we are going, that what resonates with our hopes, our dreams, our values. Come, gather. We are here in this space made of all spaces, and we share our becoming in this moment. And now we will enjoy our time for all ages.
Good morning. This week in our religious education class, we're looking at Buddhism and how Buddhists think of God, heaven, and hell. Buddhism, of course, is teaches the practice of being in the moment, being present and slowing down our frantic thoughts, which seems very fitting for this week's worship title. There are so many wonderful Buddhist parables, but I just want to share two very short ones with you just to help you get your mind open today. The lumberjack. One day, a strong young man came to a lumberjack camp looking for a job. Seeing his appearance, the manager hired him right away without hesitation. The young man walked into the woods, noticing the peace and quiet of the space. He looked up at the trees and thought to himself, I'm so happy to be here. I love to swing my axe and see the trees fall, knowing that they will be used to create shelters for people. So he started swinging away. And he did an excellent job. On the first day, he felled 8 trees all by himself, and everyone was happy with his performance. But the next day, the young man went out into the woods again, and strangely, he was only able to fell 4 trees, even though he had worked just as hard. And on the third day, the results were even worse. He only felled 2 trees. So when his boss asked him about his poor performance, the young man answered that he didn't know what was happening. He had worked hard, just the same amount every day. And then his boss asked him a question, when was the last time you sharpened your axe? Actually, I haven't found the time. I was too busy felling the trees, he answered. Well, of course, the moral of this tale is that working too hard without thinking of ourselves and our health leads to us becoming duller in our thoughts and our actions as we wear down. The second parable is the 4 candles. 4 monks decided to meditate silently without speaking for 2 weeks. They lit a candle as a symbol of their practice, and they began. But by nightfall, the first candle of the first day, the candle flickered, and then it went out. The first monk said, "Oh no, the candle is out." "Shh, we're not supposed to talk," said the second monk. "Why must you two break the silence?" whispered the third monk. And the fourth monk laughed and said, "Ha, I'm the only one who did not speak." Well, they all had their different reasons, but each of the 4 monks shared their thoughts without filtering them, none of which improved the situation. Had there been a 5th and wiser monk, he would have remained silent and kept meditating. For you see, the less you speak, the smarter you get. And maybe quite by coincidence, the smarter you get, the less you speak. Well, I hope you've enjoyed those stories and the food for thought there. So let us now sing our hymn, number 100, I've Got Peace Like a River.
It is time in our service for centering, a time to become fully present at this time, in this space, in your space at home, and hear these words, "The Need to Be Still," by the Reverend Robert T. Weston. Some of us with muscles and nerves singing in the full flush of youth, some with quiet confidence, and some perhaps weary, worn with the failures, the years, and the passing of strength. And still others, people determined, filled with the zeal of battle for justice yet to be, and for truth still denied or undiscovered. Each and all of us, whatever we be, must come to the time when we need to be still. There comes a time when we must know the need to go apart and meditate, to seek the meanings of our lives, to reconsider the purpose we have accepted, and to establish peace within ourselves. The world presses on us too insistently. The appetites too imperiously demand of us, and we forget to be real persons in ourselves. May this moment be one of redemption, of renewal of faith in life and the living of it. May the disciplines of humility and courage be strengthened from this time. May it be rediscovery of self and the lifting of the heart with a sense of newness from discovery. New courage, fresh vigor, and a deep thoughtfulness for the living of life from this day. So may it be. Please join me in a few moments of silence, followed by Spirit of Life.
Our reading this morning is taken from the writing of Unitarian minister Mary Wellmeyer, entitled Holy Kitchen. Don't ask me why I am alone today, this day when almost everyone else makes an enormous effort to be with family. It is my choice for many reasons, and all is well. Here I stand in my own familiar, newish kitchen, preparing, without any real need to do so, the ceremonial dishes of my tribe. My sense of the presence of those departed is sharper in my solitude. I know they come whenever I use this bowl, prepare this recipe, wait just this long, and then do that. Today, there is no chatter to distract me. No live guests eager for the result of this process. I am more attentive to the Spirit, lingering in the comfort of the ritual. My thoughts and gestures start a conversation with the hovering shades. They speak in silence, and I listen. And when they are silent again, their lingering blessings remain, settling gently in this place, leaving it forever changed, ever so gently charged with holiness. Here ends the reading. We move a moment into our time of offertory and the gift of music. We invite you to notice that there is a new way for you also to give and be generous. If you notice on the YouTube page where you are, underneath where you are watching this service, there is a link that opens Tithely, which is one of the services that we use to be able to give. This way, during the service, you can give as you might if you were here in this room right now. It allows you both to give for today, for the church right now, but also to set up a reoccurring payment. No matter what, know that it is all the ways that we share our gifts with each other that keeps this congregation alive and vibrant. The offering will celebrate that sharing of gifts with music. Thank you so much, Thomas. Beautiful. This is not a holiday service, although the reading and this opening story might suggest it is. It's more just as I thought about today's topic, where my mind went first. It is not unusual for clergy of all stripes to find the winter holiday season to be a very busy and hectic time, and especially Christmas Eve. Many of the congregations I have served have up to 5 services on Christmas Eve, and so on Christmas morning, it is not unusual to wake up exhausted, and many of my colleagues also wake up with a cold because probably during that week they worked a lot and they hugged a lot of people the night before. Nonetheless, there's something very meaningful about Christmas Day. And the one that I return to most often began very simply. I slept in a little bit. I got up and had some coffee and listened to music and just let myself feel how tired I was, but also how grateful I was for the season that I had just been a part of with the congregation. And then later that morning, I got in my car and I drove to be with one of my colleagues, Mary Beth, who had just completed her season with her congregation of celebrating the holidays and was also in her place of deep tiredness. Together, we collaborated to make some scones. We assembled some fruit for a salad together, all the while listening to David Sedaris's Santaland Diaries on NPR. And as we sat and ate our brunch, we reflected quietly together on what the season had taught the two of us, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it gave us time and space to connect more deeply with each other, to think about what this time had meant for us, to learn from it together, and to acknowledge that we needed that time to recharge as we moved into a busy new calendar year. In the midst of so many difficulties in the last many months, I think it's all the more important for us to also take stock of the things that might have a sort of giftedness to them as well, even if that gift is complicated. The pandemic has been an almost unavoidable mandate to slow down, both at home for many people, as well as out in the world at various times. There has been a noticeable lack of as much noise or traffic, sometimes to the point that for some people it is uncomfortable. And as I talk about this setup, I point out a couple of important caveats. That there were many jobs, primarily frontline workers, who found their life was anything but slowing down during the last months. And there were many family situations that may never have felt like a slowdown at all. Also, I want to acknowledge that some folks who did experience a slowdown and more quiet did not experience it as a plus. There are multiple indications that some of our younger adults who live alone during the pandemic found themselves more likely to feel anxious and depressed. A study pointed out that 18 to 44-year-olds reported higher rates of anxiety and depression than any other age group, and that the people who seemed to fare the best during this time were folks who were 65 or older, reporting the lowest rates of anxiety and depression. Also, there has been indication that folks who have various kinds of mental illness may have found the pandemic and its isolation a difficult time. With all that also being true, many people have realized that there were things that they learned in the quieter pace that were not new, but needed to be honored and perhaps in some way perpetuated more often in their lives. Hanaya Curry Trapper found that before the pandemic, as she was beginning her own business and also trying to raise two young children, that she needed something that allowed her to slow down and rest body, mind, and spirit. For her, it was yoga, and as she found more and more benefit, she began to teach and then write about it. She writes this: "Like the rocks in the river that become smooth over time, patience is the process of letting life flow at a pace that may not follow your time schedule. When you slow down your pace, you are able to see things more clearly. The world may feel like it's spinning out of control, but you don't have to. Anchor into your breath. Slow your pace so that you can remain clear." What I want to, for a few moments with you, is think about some of the various gifts that the secret of slowness reveals to us, especially in light of this month's theme of cultivating relationships. The minister Scott Taylor writes, we must remember to go slow. It's the secret so rarely mentioned. Simply put, relationships are really hard to build when we are running. But the impact of this idea of what slowing down may do for us has its influence in so many components of our lives, all the way through it, asking us to slow our pace a little bit, and in that slowing, to foster a quiet that assists us in connecting in so many ways, with ourselves, with those around us, with what we are experiencing and learning about the world around us. Kathleen McTeague told this story. Not far from where I work, there's this little hole-in-the-wall cafe. All the place ever serves is soup. The woman who works behind the counter always looks glad to be there, doing what she's doing, and she often knows her customers by name. Last week, there were at least a half dozen people waiting in line to be served, but she still lingered with an old man at the counter. And I realized it was a wonderful thing just then to be marooned on this little island of calm amidst the impatience, irritability, and general craziness of life. Watching her at work, it's easy to believe that some small corner of the world's fabric is being patiently, lovingly stitched back together. There are so many different ways that this idea of slowing down in our lives, at least now and then, may offer important strengths and important insights into our life. Even in early childhood education, when there has been a temptation for years to really amp up our pace so that children will remain attentive in the learning process, we began to realize that a constant frenetic pace might not be the best for developing a child's mind or temperament. And one of the early and very public counterpoints to this was the work of Fred Rogers. In his book, The Good Neighbor, Maxwell King notes, academics who have studied Rogers' work often marvel at how young children calm down, pay attention, and learn so much from his television production, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and how they remained calm and centered for some time after watching The Neighborhood, and that Rogers himself put great care into the pacing of the program to help children slow down and steady themselves. It is true in encountering the natural world as well that the power of slowing down can make a difference. While nature is not always necessarily quiet or slow in its pace, it is often very much attuned to a longer and larger process of change. And often if we wish to have rapport with the whole world around us, not just the human world, we need to slow down in its midst. Aspen Mattis experienced a lot of this when she began to hike. And her hiking originally was inspired by some very difficult experiences in her life, including her work at healing from sexual abuse. But she wrote this about her experience of being out on the trails. Trails enable me to better see the world, to notice the fine aspects invisible from an airplane, the most basic things we miss. Seeing life at the pace where you can actually observe nuance, the speed of stepping, the beautiful, inspiring textures of the plain reality become visible, God smiling in the details. So there are other ways that slowness helps us really be in tune with the essence of what we need most from a situation. And even in pathways that seem like they might be the opposite of that, often slowness offers a gift that is even more essential. I often return to the words of Thomas Merton about social justice. He writes that there is a pervasive form of contemporary violence to which the idealist fighting for peace by non-violent means most easily succumbs: overwork. The rush and pressure of modern life are a form, he writes, perhaps the most common form of innate violence. to allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone, is to succumb to violence, he writes. More than that, it is cooperation in violence. The frenzy of an activist neutralizes their work for peace because it destroys their own inner capacity for peace. It destroys the fruitfulness of their work because it kills the inner wisdom which makes their work fruitful. What I began to realize as I was thinking about this topic is that over and over again, there is an insight and an actual experience that is deeply meaningful when we slow down. In each of these areas, the common ground is that when we allow ourselves to go slower, certain essential things catch up to us by that action. By slowing down, we increase the chance that our thoughts and our presence is more clearly centered in the here and now. This allows us not to be mired in the past, though we do not separate ourselves from the gift of what we've experienced. But by being present in the here and now, we are not anxiously holding on to the past or trying in some way to engage the future, which is never actually here with us. When we are in the present, we live the only life that is abidingly true to us, this moment. And that essential action makes our relational work, which is almost everything we do, all the more possible. So often when we are with people, and especially people that we know and love well, we can be trapped in the stories of what we experienced of them in the past. That often assists us in freezing them in the experience based on what we knew of them from years ago. The thing is that we're not talking about forgetting the past. It is a powerful tool for wisdom. But all of us are not the same people we were even a few minutes ago, much less years and years in the past. Life is constantly, every moment, changing us. And the people we were when we were younger, there may be some component of that is still alive in us. But if we slow down and pay attention to the person who's in front of us or within us, often we are relating to something that is much more true and authentic than the past or the future. When we take that moment, we realize that we are all in the process of steadily changing. Are we always changing for the better? Well, perhaps not. But our slowing down most powerfully allows us to do the important work of knowing each other and more powerfully knowing who we really are. To slow down centers us in a specific time and place, and it allows us to really understand who we are in this moment, to acknowledge both the ways that we need to recharge ourselves, but also the inner strengths that we carry with greater accuracy as well. By being in the moment, we are able to reach the greatest sense of agency in the choices and have those choices not based on a mind that is deeply aflutter with 1,000 different things, but perhaps more focused on what it is that we are able to do, able to think, able to be in this moment. That gift is something that we practice again and again if we allow ourselves to find a way when we feel especially busy and overwhelmed to stop and breathe and let ourselves become aware of this moment, this breath, what is happening in our body and mind in this particular time and space. The wonderful gift about this is that we don't even have to do it perfectly. Even if every once in a while we imperfectly just take a moment when our life feels overwhelmed, breathe deeply, and remember that we can only engage what is right in front of us right now authentically. Just doing that every once in a while can make a huge difference in how we regard life and how we learn to relate to everything that is important to us. I was reminded of this truth by the story of a woman, Mia Tagano, who writes about her experience of visiting her 94-year-old grandmother in a rehabilitation center, and how she had to adapt as she learned to relate with her grandmother, who was dealing with dementia, in very different ways. She writes, "In our visits, we were quiet often together, but we would laugh easy, play solitaire in partnership, high-five with both hands when she, quote, wins at the end, and we play only as long as it's fun, and then I hold her hand, or she holds mine. We hold each other." She used to just put out one hand for me to hold, but nowadays she reaches out with both and squeezes tightly. Sometimes she falls asleep, still holding on. And when I go to leave, I kiss her face, literally. Her forehead, her eyes, her cheeks, her mouth, and she giggles and thanks me for coming to visit her. And I thank her for her love. It is a beautiful and intimate and slow period of time together. She also writes that she realized that the two of them weren't alone in that room. She had a roommate across the curtain. And so one day she just tried very carefully to go around the curtain and do some of the same things that she was doing with her grandmother, to slow down and be quiet with this woman who over time told her that her name was Amelia and that she was in that place to try to recover after a major physical setback. What Mia realized is that slowly, without words, we were building a relationship based on kindness. After this, Amelia slowly shared more about her life, and I found out more of who this woman is, and I found out about her spirit. And I realized, amazing, it doesn't take long to make real, intimate, genuine human connection with someone. It only takes stopping for a moment, listening deeply, and looking with your heart rather than your eyes. So, in this time, what is it that the idea of slowing down might say to you? Of giving yourself space, and giving yourself space with the people, the things, the work that matters most to you. To go deeper into those connections, whether with yourself or the planet, with the work of justice, the work of building relationships with strangers and the people you love most alike. There are so many layers to this work, and there are so many meaningful ways to begin. But each of them start with letting ourselves stop for a moment, listen deeply, and seek to see the world with our heart. It will be certainly true that this open and present way of being will be a gift so needed in our world right now. So may it be. I invite you to join us in our closing hymn. Hymn number 112, Do You Hear?
Do you hear, oh my friend, in the place where you stand, through the sky, through the land? Do you hear, in the heights on the plain, in the vale on the main, in the sun, in the rain? Do you hear, through the roar, through the rush, through the throng, through the crush? Do you hear in the hush of your soul, hear the cry, hear one still, hear the heart's call to will, hear a sigh, sparkling trill, in your soul, in your soul. From the place where you stand to the outermost strand, do you hear, oh my friend, do you
And now, as we prepare to leave this place, I invite you to return to your chalice or candle. These words are by Eric Williams. May you be filled with the blessings of this covenanted community. May you carry them with you as you depart this shared space. May you discover the places in the world where these blessings are needed. May you have the courage to share them. May there be an open place within you to receive the blessings of the people whom you will meet along the way. We extinguish this light, but not the light of wisdom, the warmth of human community, or the fire of our commitment to change the world. These remain until we gather in our shared space again. Thanks for joining us this morning. We look forward to being with you next week.